Hey, it's Christopher, and you're listening to the Super Fantastic. Is it above average? Well, I think it still is above average. Above average racing. Spectacular. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Interesting week. Las Vegas. Drivers let the dice roll, huh? All the Vegas cliches, I guess, you could throw into one race. Not the best race. I mean, I've seen better. So it's off to the West Coast Swing continues, ISM. Kevin Harvick's playground. Place where he's obliterated the competition for years upon years upon years. And if Kyle Busch has something to say about that, it might be a different story, but nonetheless, race number 4, 2019 Monster Energy Cup Series. Interesting enough, Vegas, Joey Logano, man, he holds off Keselowski as the clash of the Penske teammates. It's pretty interesting there in the final laps. Keselowski really wanted this one. You could see it in the post-race from him that wanted back-to-back wins. You know, he went on that run last year, the consecutive victories. Remember that on the hot streak that pretty much positioned the Penske drivers, especially good old Brad K, as the favorites at that point in time to claim the championship. And eliminated at Kansas came a bit of a shocker to most people, myself included. So Logano here holds off, grabs the win, grabs the checker. That's 2 consecutive for Penske. Penske is heating up. He leads 86 laps here. Led the final 24. This is career win number 22. A lot of irony with the number 22. Get more on that later. But that puts him 36 all-time now. He's tied with Hall of Fame fellow championship driver Terry Labonte. So when we start looking at legacies and Hall of Fames and where drivers are positioned in history books, Logano certainly winning the championship last year. And it's been a lot of... Logano broke into this sport with a lot of hype. At the certain periods of time, you could say, was the hype nothing but hype? Was there actually talent there? You know, in his tenure with Joe Gibbs, we all know. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about that, but not as successful, I think, as all parties involved would have hoped things would have turned out for Joe Gibbs and Joey Logano at the time. And he makes the move to Penske in 2013, and it's been all uphill for him since then. It's all been rainbows and gumdrops for him and unicorns. He's done a phenomenal job in that 22 car and has made that 22 car. As he said, we talk a lot so much last year about, and I'm not going to keep beating the dead horse. You know who they are: Harvick, Busch, Kyle, that is, and Truex. Had just obliterated the competition and taken a stand in reaching that next level of excellence that any driver in this series would hope to attain. And I think you always would throw Logano. It's interchangeable if you throw Logano or Keselowski in that. If there was going to be a big 4, maybe a big 5, you'd throw the 2 Penske guys in there. Again, you could possibly put in, you know, at times other members of Stewart-Haas Racing or someone from Hendrick, one of the other Joe Gibbs drivers. But for the most part, it's fairly been consistent, the Penske cars. The Penske cars are emerging here victorious 2 consecutive weeks and are I've pretty much laid down the hammer. They've put down the groundwork for what this is going to look like next season for any driver who's going to want to, this season and next season. There's going to be, you're going to have to contend with the Penske contingency if you plan on competing for the championship. Now it's a long way to go before the championship, but you know, next time we visit ISM, the racetrack we're visiting this weekend, the complexion of the playoff picture is going to look a lot different. You're going to know who's going into the Final Four. Both Penske drivers could be there. Maybe either Logano or Keselowski are there. But I think before we're getting too off topic here, is that I think Logano is starting to build himself as a legit superstar in this sport. I think he already had reached that with the championship last year, and then 2 seasons prior to that, 16, I think he had already emerged. I thought he was a championship favorite back in 2015, 14. Had shown a lot of prowess, and when you start tying people or surpassing people on that all-time wins list of the calibers of a Jeff Burton, of Terry Labonte here now, you start looking at the Hall of Fame. And I think Keselowski, we've established, made a great case for the Hall of Fame. Very well could be there at the end of his career. And he's like Logano himself, that championship win, but I just think Logano, it's too soon. Lots of untapped potential, Logano. I think there's lots of time to see what Logano can do, given the circumstances he's in. I think that the best is yet to come from Joey. But at this point in time, it's a pretty incredible feat that he's won the championship. Now he's neck and neck there with Terry Labonte on the all-time wins list by virtue of this victory at Las Vegas. So back to the 22. So this was the 22nd spring race at Vegas. 22nd career win for Logano. And he's driving car number 22. So if you're superstitious or you're into numbers and coincidence and things that are serendipitous, then that's pretty cool. So this is his 3rd win in the last 7 races at Vegas. Excuse me, 3rd win in the last 7 races dating back to Martinsville last fall in the playoffs. So undoubtedly, Logano, in addition to claiming that championship, has established himself as the top guy. And we're going to go into some stats with Penske later, but the best is yet to come. I think Logano, and I know we'll talk a lot about the Hall of Fame again. We're going to circle back to what's the criteria for that, and what makes a driver eligible or even worthy of that distinction. For Logano, he's got the championship crossed off. He has the 500, the Daytona 500 2015 crossed off. Southern 500 is one he'd like to, and he was very competitive in the Southern 500 last season. Coke 600, and you throw in the Brickyard. I think Joey, if he can notch off a couple more of those wins, win at Charlotte in the 600 or the Brickyard, the conversation continues to build for him. And he's still a fairly young driver. Logano has been around forever in the sport and cup level, but fairly young guy, still got lots of time left, lots of wins in him. This is his 7th season with Penske. Undoubtedly, this was a good fit, and I think I've brought it up on this program before that I didn't think he was a good fit for Penske when they hired him on, because we've seen when Keselowski made the transition from Hendrick, where there was no seat available for him at the time, and it would be documented years later that Keselowski was a bit sour. He was upset, sour grapes there, that Hendrick let him go. And if you look back now, hindsight 2020, what could have Hendrick looked like? The complexion of that team had they hung on to Brett Keselowski, not let him walk away to Penske. And in his first season with Penske was abysmal as he was driving that 12th car. Nothing to write home about. A year later, he's in the championship fight. 2 years later, he's the champion. Logano has had the same effect on him, where he is just morphed into this legitimate stud deck race car driver and has made anything he's done. And even though he did collect 2 wins with JGR and in that 20 car, you don't even go back to that or even remember that at any point and just think, wow, this is a guy that it's come a lot of adversity in the last 3-4 years. And you look at that debacle from the 2017 season where he's penalized, not in the playoffs, that incumbent win at Richmond, much made about that in the spring, and that just derailed the season for him. Team was never the same, was not that competitive. It just took the wind out of their sails, and he comes back the next year, and he's the champion. So Logano is resilient, if anything. Perseverance paying off. The title year in 2018. They didn't win their first race a year ago. Even this, that's how strong this team is, and the momentum that's carried over from last season is that They won the spring race in Talladega last year. That was Penske's only win until Keselowski's hot streak. And they would go on just an absolute tear from there in the playoff. They've owned the playoffs. The playoffs was there. 6 playoff wins in 2018 for Penske. How powerful is that team? That's more than half the races. That's 60% of the races in the playoffs you're taking down. He was never lower than 6th in the standings in 2018. At any point in the season, Joey Logano, when you look at championships, and there's much made about this format, and we talked about this format very ad nauseum, it seems like. This format favors certain drivers. The format's not kind to others. But Logano, if you subtract this format or not, Logano has been, if anything, one of the best. If you even erase this format, he would have been a champion probably years ago. If we're going by the old point system. Logano was solidly in that hunt last year. It just wasn't, when someone gets hot in the playoffs and can coast till the end and have a shot at that Final Four, maybe the pulling out, that's what this is designed to do, create that drama, that big game feel to the very end. But Logano was there all year, solidly there all year, no lower than 6th. He was there to the end. He claims the championship. And they're just picking up right where they left off from last year. Strong finishes. 4th at Daytona. He wins here at Vegas. Led some laps at Atlanta. Got into some issues there on pit road. How good is he? And I know Auto Club's coming up, ISM. ISM, he's not very good. You look at his statistics, not a strong track for Logano. You could almost say the same about Auto Club. But there's some good tracks coming up for this team. Talladega, Martinsville, Richmond. Richmond comes to mind for me. We could be talking a month from now in this program, maybe, 6 weeks, less than a month. 2 months from now. Whatever the case may be, he could just keep piling up these wins. I don't know how strong he's going to be. 22 wins. How many can he get this season? He's making that push, that march. And you look at Kyle Busch. We'll talk about Kyle Busch. When we talk about Logano, we talk about Kyle Busch a lot. It seems like, for whatever reason, these two are somehow out. Well, they're connected in many ways. They're former teammates and some of the issues they've had on the track. But if Busch, the amount of time Busch is in he's had a lot of years on Kyle Busch. Has a few years on Logano as far as experience level goes in the Cup Series. Logano is here since 2009, so 10th season in Cup, realistically 10 years, but this is not his 10th season. This is his 11th season here. How much, if you could pull 22 wins in 11 seasons, and some of those years were not good. Remember, them 2 years in JGR, forgettable. We know that already. Continues to rise to the occasion with Penske, continues to pump out quality cars week in and week out. That 22 will become a 32, then a 42. He's just going to climb up the all-time wins list quickly. And now I think you could say he's playing more of a heel role. Logano has drawn a lot of heat, made some unsatisfactory comments there in the winner's circle, highly critical comments, I think, about this rules package. A lot of drivers very outspoken. Depends on what side of the coin you're on. If you're winning and collecting the trophies, you're liking this new rules package just fine. If you're chasing your tail and able to find your way to the winner's circle, it might not be as entertaining or as interesting. I think him with the confrontation with Michael McDowell on pit road following the Daytona 500. Is he a heel, motherfucker? He's a heel. I think Logano's always had that heel persona, not to the nuclear red hot heat that Kyle Busch gets, But if you look at some of the on-track incidents he's had with a Kyle Busch, he had that Auto Club a few years ago with Tony Stewart. His battle with Matt Kenseth in the playoffs a few years ago. He's drawn some pretty nuclear heat from some of his competitors. So is he a heel? Was he a baby face if you're going down that pro wrestling route? To get on Michael McDowell for not going with him with the 500 and getting him a shot at the championship, claiming the second championship of the Daytona 500, that is. Pronouns, pal. Excuse me. What is he talking about? Well, the Daytona 500, the Earl Ross Trophy. To me, that is him puffing out his chest and towering over the little guy. And that is just solidifying his dominance over a guy like a Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell, and it's nothing against on Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell is a great race car driver. He would be in the NASCAR Energy Cup Series if he was not a great driver. But he's not Joey Logano. He's never won a race. So McDowell, who might not be used to running up front, we talked about this in our episode when we recapped Daytona, but he's not obligated to go with him. He doesn't work with him. He's not a teammate. He might be a manufacturer. They run the same manufacturer, Ford. But in no way, shape, or form does Michael McDowell have to help Joey Logano and push him to the front or help him collect the victory. Absolutely not obligated to. So I think McDowell's not at fault there. But the reaction Logano got to be so angry and so upset with McDowell that you have people who are siding with Logano, is saying the kind of he's commanding that attention. He's commanding that this is how great I am, and I'm getting absolutely a lot better. So it's like I said, a lot of nuclear heat. It's never really been. So when you start analyzing, is Logano playing off that villain, that heel persona? I think he always had a bit of that. When someone comes in with the name Sliced Bread as a nickname, and then his rookie season highly criticized. I mean, I watched back an old episode, an old race when he did win at New Hampshire in his rookie season, and NBC had the commentary on that race, and Kyle Petty was pretty much buried him, said that he, from whatever, lack of a better term, that he didn't deserve to even win this race. Said a lot about what people thought about Logano. And I think Logano, at that time, it was a rain-shortened event. And we'll cover it again at one point in this program. And Logano, I think, winning in the rain, it was just right place, right time. No one remembers that now. I just remember that he won in his rookie season. And I think he is, there's a lot to be said for his ability as a race car driver. And I think Logano is a great driver, and there's much to be said about his abilities as a race car driver, and he's come a long way since then, and he's done phenomenally. But it's all have to do with Roger Penske, and I think Roger Penske, as I said, the dominance here. He won 8 of the last 15 races since Darlington in September of 2018. Joey GR's had 3. Hendricks had 2. Stewart-Haas had 2. So is this the best team in NASCAR right now? I'd say so. Penske has been, if anything, they've set the bar. They've set the standard for sure. At this point, I think they have been competing at a high level for many years, as we know. But I think this 3-car team has really set that standard. And that's going to be very tough to compete with, not only this season, but into next season and beyond that. I think Penske is a really strong team, and it's one team that you're going to keep your eyes on. So how does the other two teams. I'm not going to even count Hendrick here. It's nothing on Hendrick. I think Hendrick's got a lot of issues they have to sort out if they're going to start be talking about elite status. I think I would put Ganassi, as we talked about the Chevrolet teams, I would put Ganassi and even JT Doherty as gaining. JT Doherty is gaining a lot of traction, and when you start to talk about who's the top Chevrolet team in NASCAR at this point, I don't think automatically you're saying Hendrick anymore. That's not your top of your head answer. And you think of Chevrolet, your the correlation here. I was going to say, well, I'm thinking Hendrick, the dominance of Hendrick Power in Chevrolet. It's not the case anymore. JGR has to, if Kyle Busch running the way he's winning, he's automatic. You can count on him. Denny Hamlin, he's won the 500 this year. So JGR, not too far behind, but I think Penske has stepped out to the lead here, and it comes to dominance. So the second place car, not really enough. It's Brad Keselowski, who's going for consecutive wins, fourth Vegas win. His quest for 4 falls short. Leads 17 laps, but not importantly the last one, and a little bit of disappointment there in the winner's circle. But I think Brad Keselowski, if you remember back to 2015, upset win at Auto Club. Auto Club is coming up after ISM. Cannot count him out of ISM either. Not his strongest track either. But when the team is running this well and has everything firing on all cylinders, I think you have to watch him this week. But I wouldn't put him amongst the favorites to win anything at ISM. So Kyle Busch gets a third place finish here. Very critical in his comments of the new rules package, not having any of it. 2 top 5s to start the season. Falls short here of the Vegas sweep, as he has had won the Xfinity race and the truck race. So his legacy just continues to grow. He's chasing history there. He's cutting down that margin to tie Richard Petty and surpass Richard Petty for the most wins in NASCAR of all the 3 series, and that's pretty incredible. Kyle Busch, man, I think he's a phenomenal racer. We all know, and can't quite find his way into the winner's circle. Maybe ISM. We'll talk about that later. Kevin Harvick. So 4th place run here in Vegas. Consecutive 4th place run as he would win the Vegas pole here. Matches his finish from Atlanta. ISM, we all know the story. We'll talk about Harvick and ISM momentarily. But I think trailing thought here is Stewart-Haas Racing is behind Penske. They're not quite at that level. It's Harvick's automatic. We know Harvick, and he's made Stewart-Haas Racing his own. When you think of Stewart-Haas Racing, you're thinking automatically now of Tony Stewart. When he departed, it was even when he was there with Harvick, it was still Harvick's team. Harvick was the top dog there, the top car, the number 4 car. It's to get Suarez, Almirola. It's a close trailing, just ever so slightly behind Harvick in performance of the 4 cars, and then Clint Bowyer, who seems to just be all over the place. Having an okay season, but I mean, it's just the lacks consistency. That's been Clint Bowyer's MO since he's been with Stewart-Haas Racing, that he just cannot string together enough consistency to be taken serious as a title contender, or even as a to his peer Kevin Harvick could even be seen as an equal. That's the word I'm looking for. So a Vegas finish. I think Harvick needs to pull one out real soon. I think he tends to win a lot of races fairly early in the season, but I just don't know if he's got a winning car coming up even this week at a racetrack where he is lights out. But we'll see. Give it some time. But that Penske team, wow. Can they turn it around? Can they turn the form around? Can we see the old Kevin Harvick? So his home away from home, we said ISM. He's the defending spring winner. 4 of the 9 wins are in the spring. Since the fall 2013 race, he has no finish worse than 6th place, and 6 wins in that span of those 11 races. So this is obviously a place Kevin Harvick likes to see. It's very early on the schedule. He's been extremely talented, and we'll just see what happens here. But I think Stewart-Haas Racing has to if I think they're trailing a little bit behind Joe Gibbs Racing, as he said, the strong runs from Kyle Busch and already the win in the bag there for Denny Hamlin in the Daytona 500. And then Truex Jr. strong run at Atlanta last week, the second place, the run-up finish, and he had a top 10 this week at Vegas for the Stewart Haas cars. You have Almirola and Kevin Harvick, who are performing really well, and then Suarez is still finding a way to adjust himself to life at Stewart Haas. We'll see how that all pans out. Kurt Busch. Let's talk about Kurt Busch now. Talk a lot about Kurt and his how he's turned things around. And Kurt now is gone back into the Wayback Machine again, as he did when he was with Furniture Row. And this all stems back to Penske, when he was released from Penske. I still think the year he spent away from Penske when he was with James Finch in Phoenix, and then Barney Visser at Furniture Row gives him that opportunity, and he made that team credible. He made the Stewart Haas 41 car credible, and he's doing this now, restoring credibility to the one car with Chip Ganassi Racing. And it's nothing on Jamie McMurray. Jamie McMurray's a phenomenal driver. We know that he's he's the Daytona 500 champion, Brickyard champion, multiple-time winner at Charlotte. It just, for whatever reason, that got stale, and McMurray couldn't quite capitalize on the success he once had in that car. Kurt Busch comes in here, 5th place finish. He's got the 1999 Star Nursery throwback paint scheme. So if anyone's gone babyface, you talk about heel, it would be Kurt Busch here. The results are there. He respects his roots by running the scheme. This is what he started out with in 99. He's a young lad then, and I think they tell the story in Fox about if you think I'm good, wait till you see my brother. And my goodness, couldn't have been so correct with that. So this is positive for Ganassi. I think this is making Ganassi look like a genius here for hiring Kurt Busch, and it was rumored for months he was going to be in this car, as he was the only really premium ride left, but nothing was made official until early December. And this is supposed to be Kurt's final hurrah, I know, but I think if he continues to compete at this level week in and week out, and they're going to be up there jockeying for position and for victories, why wouldn't you keep Kurt around for maybe another year later? I know probably if you look at Ross Chastain or John Henry Nemechek are probably likely candidates if Kurt does indeed hang up the helmet at the end of the season to transition to this number one car. His consecutive top fives. He's flourishing in this role, not as the babyface role, but here at Chip Ganassi, I think he's going to outshine Kyle Larson here. As Kyle Larson, for whatever reason, just something's missing in that program, and it's not, I think, lack of talent, but Kurt Busch has come in here and has done really well. He's turning back the clock. As I said, he brought such credibility to the last two teams he was with prior to going here at Ganassi, and he led 23 laps, just looking good. I think Kurt Busch is not only going to win a race real soon, I think he's going to win multiple races in this car. That's what I predicted as the season started, that he was going to really take ownership of this one car and make this car credible again, make the one great again, if you will. So Ricky Stenhouse here has a 6th place finish. This is his 3rd consecutive top 10 start to start the season. Fast car, so Roush Fenway is tuning up them cars, really fast forwards on qualifying day. And can he return to that 2017 form, which was his breakout season? I know he won at Talladega, he won at Daytona. People are going to say, well, those are nothing but a bona fide plate racer. Does he won outside of plate race? Well, he's a very good driver. He's a 2-time Xfinity Series champion. And Stenhouse, Stenhouse has been criticized by his Joe Gibbs Racing teammates, Truex Jr. and now Eric Jones in consecutive weeks, that he held up Truex at Atlanta. So what? If he had a faster car than him, if he was a lap car Truex and he was faster, why didn't you just blow right by him? And Eric Jones complaining. They were battling for position here at Vegas. Jones didn't like the way Stenhouse was racing him, and that's a very throwback way of racing someone. I think a lot of people were in defense of Stenhouse again, and praising him for his really old school mentality and how he was raced. You know, it's meant to be every position counts. You're not just gonna lay down for the competitor and let your competitor go by. And why are you doing this? Why would you bother even racing on Sunday if you want to wave your own white flag and say, well, you go ahead of me? And I think Stenhouse is doing Roush Fenway Racing. I think I know it's so early in the season, but it looks a lot in a better place in these 3 races than they did at some points the entire 2018 season. It's just a strong run out. Newman has been fitting in really well with his team, and Stenhouse Jr. looks like he's ready to just one little step away from getting their performance to where he could put up some of those 2017 numbers. And and ISM was the place where they turned that around in 2017. Remember that. So Eric Almirola, 7th place run here. He's backing up his 2018 form, consecutive top 10 finishes. Arguably the best Stewart-Haas racing car outside of Kevin Harvick. The performance here, they got to catch up. But I think overall that Stewart-Haas racing has to get all 4 cars on the same level here real soon. And if they plan on they're going to likely make the playoffs. But it just seems, again, that the scales are not even. You got one side heavy into heavily outweighing the other, or you have fast cars from the 10 and the 4, or the 41 and 14 are just finding themselves trailing most days on race day and not looking really particularly solid at all. Jimmy Johnson. So I'll transition to him here. Is it time to push the panic button there on old 7-time champion Johnson? 19th place run here, 4-time Vegas winner. Did not look competitive at all. Consecutive weeks does not look good at all this season. The doubt's starting to creep in. If this is the end? He's all at 83 wins. Is he ever going to get 84? Hendrick, the whole organization is just really at a crossroads at this point, struggling. There's a debate. Could he run some Xfinity races? Dale Jarrett, I think, was debating that at NBC. The colleague, and Dale Jr. would tweet out and he would defend him and says, I just think that Jimmy doesn't need any seat time. He's a 7-time champion. Just needs more time. Hendrick just needs more time to get these cars better on race day on Sunday. I think that's the issue. And Dale Jr., in support of Hendrick, former employer, that he can get this right, and they can get it right. Hendrick has been one of the best teams in NASCAR for decades. But for whatever reason, the bloom is off the rose with Johnson. He just cannot seem to, for whatever reason, and then you change the crew chief. It wasn't Chad Knaus. What is the issue? Is it the driver? Is it the 48? This is not a feared team anymore. I remember you see the 48, much like the 24 in its day, feared on the racetrack. This is an afterthought now. Now he doesn't need to be in the Xfinity Series. Johnson, I think they just have to build on getting the team's morale up in general for all 4 cars. Johnson doesn't need to spend any time in the Xfinity Series. Johnson is a 7-time champion for a reason. More seat time in an Xfinity Series is not the way to go. I think it will do little to nothing to better his efforts on Sundays. And Johnson is he's going to find 84. It's just, I don't know. He's a 4-time ISM winner. Can he capitalize here? Last top 5 finish, though, for him at ISM, fall of 2015. That seems like eternity ago. The Ute movement here, as I said, they're all in on this. Chase Elliott has a 9th finish here, his first top 10 of the season. It's not looked strong at all to start the year, but it's notoriously slow start. We'll give him time. Bowman, an 11th place finish. So all good on Alex Bowman. All 3 races here this season, all inside the top 15. Good for him. The 88 car, as I said, he's just gets better at each race, it seems like, in that car, and could be someone to keep your eye on. This is his home track. Remember what he did and he stepped for Dale Jr. here in the fall years ago. Byron, so 16th place run for him at Vegas. Not terrible. I mean, he leads 21 laps. He's led 65 laps in total throughout the 3 races in 2019. And Byron is Still on fire. Like I said, very young man, 22 years old. Give him time. It's not going to win a race yet. Might not even be this season. Give him some time, please. But overall, Hendrick, I think, is not where they want to be. No longer the dominant Chevrolet team. We've talked about this at length. But I think Alex Bowman is going to win a race soon. I think out of those four, he's looked the best this season. Byron too. Byron's looked pretty stout at times, leading those laps. For whatever strategy or not on pit road or whatever the case may be, he looked very strong in the Daytona 500 as well. So Kyle Busch wins the Xfinity race, the IK9 sponsorship, finally in the winner's circle. The success of the 18 this season can be tribute to Jeffrey Earnhardt, who was on the Dale Jr. Download podcast this week and talked to his uncle Dale Jr. there about upholding that Earnhardt legacy, and it's not easy, as Earnhardt was saying, just because he had that famous last name that you're going to waltz in here and win all the races. Winning a race is difficult, but I think Jeffrey Earnhardt is going to win also a race in Xfinity this year for this IK9 sponsorship, who's believed in him, stuck with him, and has allowed him this opportunity to compete for Joe Gibbs Racing and to be competitive in the races he's been in. Kyle Busch is just, what a beast. Michael Annett, so 5th place run for him, backs up the win at Daytona. And Michael Annett's one of those guys. He's 5th in the standings, off to his best start of his career. He's one of those guys, I think, where you forget he's been also in NASCAR, Cup and Xfinity for so many years, but just doesn't get his just due. And I think for whatever reason, the performance of this car, I think in 2019, is going to be a lot better. Annett's going to hang around the championship picture a lot longer. Could have a chance at it, but he's got to try to see if they can get this 5 car to get in the winner's circle, and other than Daytona. But Ryan Sieg, too, another guy off to his best start of his career. 6th place run here at Vegas, 8th in the standings. And this is a veteran. Ryan Sieg's been around a long time in the Xfinity Series, 172 starts, 4 top 5s, 11 top 10s, a runner-up at Iowa in 2017. Another guy getting his just due. A lot of parity in the Xfinity Series now. I think now that you have some of the other drivers who've gone on to Cup, graduated to Cup, and you have the absence of some of the veterans that were staples in the series for many years, and less of the Cup drivers are competing in these races, it's starting to bring some excitement and some respectability and accountability back to the Xfinity Series. That has been missing for decades. You remember watching a lot of Xfinity Series, then known as the Busch Series in the 90s, and these races were just, why watch them at that point? Or even recently, that these races just didn't seem like, this is a place for younger drivers to hone their skills and work their way up through the rankings, and it was mighty difficult for some of these drivers to compete with the Cup drivers there on the Saturday afternoon race. So I think you're seeing more is less, less is more in this case, where we're seeing less of those Cup drivers in these races and better racing out of the Xfinity Series. I mean, some of these races have been more entertaining than some of the Cup races. And I think the race last week was dominated by Christopher Bell, who's obviously head and shoulders above the rest in the series. But see, this race here at Vegas, you're just seeing a lot more parity. And a guy like Ray Black Jr., who can get a career best finish of 11th, and a guy that really is still a fairly young guy, but has been around a long time too, and has really had little to no success in any series. That'd be Cup, Xfinity, Truck, but gets himself a career best here. And Greg Alding, 68 career starts for Greg Alding, one of my all-time favorites. Greg Alding and Landon Castle, twinkle in my eye for those two guys. 12th place run here. So 11 career starts here. This is his career best for Greg Alding. And those other two, those prior best finish, previous best, that was the 13th in 2016 for Rush Fenway. Greg Alding's one of those people I'm really glad he scaled back to the Xfinity Series and is going to compete for that championship this season. Because he's still a fairly young individual as well, 23 years old. He's got lots of time to work his way back into the Cup picture. And it's nothing, again, on BK, they had their issues. But BK Racing was never a team where a young driver was going to make their name driving for them. Greg Galding did get a top 10 for them in Talladega a few years back in 2017 in the fall. That famous race, Dale Jr., everyone was pulling for Dale Jr. to win his final Talladega race. But Greg Galding, I think, given a lot more seat time, an opportunity to win races in Xfinity, run up front. This is going to be a lot for his confidence, and I think he will end up back in the Cup Series at some capacity in the coming years. But I just think at this point in time in his career, this is the absolute best place for Greg Galding to be, racing the Xfinity Series in race cars that are competitive, where you can not only compete for top 10s and top 5s, but also for victories week in and week out. Good for Greg Galding, and it's good to see him do well. So, Deegan Mania, Hailie Deegan. What you gonna do, brother, when Hailie Deegan runs wild on you, eh? Well, Hailie Deegan has collected her second career K&amp Pro West Series race last Thursday at the Las Vegas dirt track. Leads one lap. Another bump and run. It's very similar to her win last season. 17-year-old driver, second career Pro K&amp Pro West win, and only 15 starts in the series. Fifth in the series standings last year. Insta famous. I remember Stacy, lady friend, absolutely love her. Talks a lot about Insta famous, and that's what Hailie Deegan became with this win. I mean, Hailie Deegan, for people who follow racing religiously like myself, know of her and know her story. It's an incredible story at that. But when you think about female race car drivers, you're going to obviously go to Danica Patrick. Back in our day, Sarah Fisher, Milka Duno, and the IndyCar ranks. Maybe the Force sisters in NHRA. These are the more well-known female drivers on the circuit. Well, Hailie Deegan, I think, and this is not to disparage any female driver in any capacity in any form of racing, but Deegan is the real deal here. This is the blue chip talent that a lot of the people in the industry have been waiting for. So over 15,000 new followers gets the spotlight from this win. 6-race deal with Venturini Motorsports. Guest interview with Michael Waltrip on FS1. The first of those ARCA races is going to be May 19th at Toledo. And so Deegan talks about, and I like this is where I think Deegan stands out from some of the other race car drivers, male or female. She understands the process that you have to win in each series to work your way to the next series. A couple good finishes here and there doesn't automatically guarantee you that you graduate to the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series. So Deegan wants to, from the article that's up on her about ESPN, the women's section, how to nurture this career, Deegan has to, I think, take all the time she needs to become successful. Obviously, there's a fan base. Deegan is an extremely popular driver, maybe based on her gender. Sponsorship, Monster Energy, huge sponsorship. And I think Deegan has captivated the audience and has really proven herself beyond her years as talent-wise behind the wheel. So August 15th, she's going to run Bristol at the K&N Pro E Series. So they're getting these, and then some of the, I think Pocono is also on her ARCA schedule. Lucas Oil Raceway in Indianapolis. So it's getting quite a different variety of tracks that she's going to cut her teeth on. I think Hailie Deegan is one of those talents that I think is going to excel. But I think the barometer is going to be set on how far she'll go this season with the K&N, and the goal is the championship, and that was her goal. From the first is to become the champion and to win races in the K&N Pro West Series. But some of the mainstream limelight that's coming from this victory and how landmark it is something that I think is handling quite well, and going to see a lot more out of Deegan in the years to come, and I'd be hard pressed to not see her in the Truck Series or the Xfinity Series on a full-time ride very soon. But I think involving yourself with the right personnel and just gradually taking all the time you need is how we're going to separate a phenomenon from an actual raw talent that has the ability to not only to win those races but also keep this fanfare stabilized. And I think and again, it's not with Danica Patrick. Danica Patrick is a phenomenal race car driver, won in the IndyCar Series. But I think the mistake with a lot of people made with Danica in NASCAR is that we expected too much too quickly out of Danica. It never materialized. I never thought she was going to win a race. I never thought was ever going to make the playoffs. But Deegan just has that it factor. I think that her star is going to shine far above and far brighter than any of the female drivers who have come across NASCAR in some time. So good for her. I'll continue to follow her progress, and it's really cool to see her win that race last Thursday. So now at ISM, the final 5 to watch. We're going to get ready to wave the white flag on this episode. Kyle Busch, the Skittle car, is back on the track. Taste the rainbow. Hot streak. Hot start for 2019. You wouldn't expect anything less from Kyle Busch, would you not? So he won the fall race at ISM since 2015. Since that 2015 race, no finish worse than 7th. Statistics are eerily as strong as Kevin Harvick's at ISM in recent years. So of those 7 races, 6 of them are top 5s. How could you not pencil him in as a clear-cut favorite? And every time he seems to run that Skittle car, he either runs up front or wins the race. Skittle car, really cool scheme. One of my all-time favorites. Pretty cool 5950 I recently picked up with the Skittle colors. Firmly behind Kyle Busch. Ryan Newman is fitting in nicely, as I say, with Roush Fenway. Huge upgrade, and this is nothing on Trevor Bayne. Trevor Bayne, for whatever reason, just victim of circumstance. But Ryan Newman is bringing credibility back to the 6 car. That car has looked really good this season. The 2017, I'll put him in this list because I think he pulled the fuel mileage gamble there with eventual teammate Stenhouse Jr. To win the 2017 race. That's the spring race for RCR. And the fuel mileage gamble, whatever. It was a win for them. He also won in 2010 spring race with Stewart Haas Racing. So he has a track record of winning the spring race. 2 different employers. Can he make it 3? Roush Fenway Racing put themselves in the playoffs early, take some of the load off, and just, I think, if they were to win, either him or Stenhouse, which I think I'm also going to place in the drivers to watch, it takes a lot off this team so they can experiment with things to continuously get better because they have improved. Out of the first 3 races, Roush Fenway Racing looks like they're doing everything right to capitalize and get to where they want to be on race day on Sundays. And 6th place run for Stenhouse at Vegas. He had a strong 2017 at ISM. He was 4th in the spring, 8th in the fall. So every great masterpiece deserves a sequel. 2017 to me was a breakout year for Stenhouse. He can recapture some of that formula, put it here at ISM. This is where it all started for me, I think, for him. And in 2017 was at that ISM race. And he was strong. He was not strong at all at ISM, struggled in races, and I think he's recognized that. And I think this team is working really well, and I expect another strong qualifying run out of Ricky Stenhouse. And I think he's obviously someone that could be in contention for the checkered flag on Sunday afternoon. So Kyle Larson, I know we said that there's just something not right with Kyle Larson. For whatever reason, he's due for a win. 2017 form, if anyone, much like Ricky Stenhouse, needs to recapture 2017 form, it is Kyle Larson. He was a 2017 spring runner-up, and he was 3rd last fall in this event. And he has 3 top 5s in the last 5 races at ISM. Seen what Kurt Busch is doing, his veteran teammate. It's maybe going to get some of that Kurt dust to rub off on him and see how well he can run. Kyle Larson up front. And also, interesting left there, when I think of Kyle Larson and ISM, I think of the dust-up he had there with what got Newman into the championship picture in 2014. Maybe these two might have another encounter on the track, but who knows? Kyle Larson is someone to keep your eye on, and obviously Kevin Harvick as the final driver. I think you should keep your eyes on Sunday afternoon. 9-time ISN winner, spring 2008 winner. Should we say anymore? We all know the story. Kevin Harvick, just for whatever reason, has found it a liking to this track and has got around this track with ease. And even when he was with his days with RCR, had always had phenomenal runs at ISM, and I expect nothing less from him here. I think he's going to do tremendously on Sunday and could probably, if anything, get his first win of 2019 at the track that they could rename Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick International Speedway or Motor Speed, whatever you want to call it. But anyhow, we're going to wave the checkered flag on this episode of the Super Fantastic Above Average Racing Spectacular. I thank you again for listening. We'll come back next week with the fallout from ISM and the final race of the West Coast Tour. Turns its attention to Auto Club Speedway in Fontana, California. It's always an interesting track, one of the intermediate tracks. Some pretty decent finishes there in recent memory, some upsets and some good overall strong racing out of Auto Club. And also recap any news that makes its way down the pike there in the Xfinity Series or the Monster Energy Cup Series, and also IndyCar is starting real soon. We're going to look at some IndyCar, maybe cover some IndyCar races, a little bit more IndyCar action on this program in the weeks to come. But until then, I hope everybody enjoys their week and has a fantastic race weekend, super fantastic race weekend. Until next time, I will see you.